Today, folks, we got to provide some updates surrounding Oroco Resource Corp, one of the very few small caps that has personally made its way into my portfolio that I was buying back in March of this year before it went on quite a rally and now is consolidated back to a level where I've actually started to accumulate a few more shares. Now, this is a commodity stock that is focused on copper. They have a $20+ billion copper deposit currently sitting in Mexico called the Santo Tomas property that even the government has started leaning into to support them because of the massive potential for employment and expanding resources in Mexico. With the recent administration in the United States, a lot of countries have started to lean internally into resources and businesses to start expanding their GDP and their own economies. And a lot of this is lined up to make me incredibly bullish on a company that I think the street is under recognizing. So I'm going to dive into this a little bit deeper because I recently saw a Q&A from Oroco in a town hall where they offered game-changing updates to the Santo Tomas copper project. And I want to share with you some of the highlights that I found that really stuck out to me from the Q&A. But before we do that, I do want you to understand this company's net present value sits at 1.5 billion post-tax and pre-tax about 2.64 billion. I mean, the market cap is like 1/20th of that today, but copper itself is one of the most under-recognized commodities that governments are heavily starting to lean in toward, because in the electrified future, if there's electricity, there's copper, guys. I mean, whether you're talking about cloud computing, EVs use 4x the amount of copper than traditional ICE vehicles, wind, solar, you name it. Again, if there's electricity, there's copper. And people thought lithium was the electrified metal of the future, but because the supply and demand was able to be met, the price went through this massive explosive phase before, the bubble burst and things started to nominalize. We are a long ways off from that ever happening with copper, as the price currently sits at an all-time high. And why these properties are so intriguing to me, like the one that Oroco Resources is sitting on, you don't have to do too many Gemini or ChatGPT searches to really kind of get an understanding of what's going on with copper as it is today. Now, Oroco recently provided some updates as of May, basically saying they're looking for an application to expand the scope of the Santo Tomas mine plan, an engagement of environmental law firm in Mexico, and an application for listing on the Toronto Stock Exchange. This company is getting all their ducks in a row to build this into an inevitable sale and unlock that value for us as shareholders. And I think they're doing the right things, especially by looking for major listed exchanges, because a lot of mega companies, a lot of firms will not look at companies on the TSX-V or companies that trade on the OTC market. And it's why I've been able, and actually very successful recently, finding companies before they actually list to major exchanges and start having some of these major rallies, though that is, not guaranteed into the future. This video is just my personal opinion for entertainment value. I am leaving the disclaimers in the comment section below, but I am leaning on the management, the CEO, the president that I have personally done interviews with multiple times, and I believe that they know what they're doing and they're putting this in the right places, lining up those ducks, getting everything in a row to unlock value in the coming years. This isn't a project we're gonna have to sit 5 or 10 years on, in my opinion, but just take a listen to some of the highlights that I found from this Q&A.
This needs to be emphasized, is our ability to permit the project ultimately through to a production permit. And that is the overhanging issue, clearly, in terms of the lack of interest being displayed on the part of potential acquisitors. It's interesting that there is currently a major mining company that is very interested, as they've stated, in acquiring the project. They are already active in Mexico, and that is a key differentiation between the marketplace that we believe should exist and that which actually does exist. There's a clear overhang and uncertainty with respect to the permitting process in Mexico. That's what we're addressing at this point in time. We are quite confident that we've established the pathway now to approval of this project in that context. And for us, it's the critical ingredient. One of the concerns that most shareholders have is the degree of dilution. We are just as concerned. Unfortunately, though, our market has been on one side not necessarily supportive of or I'll use the term advantageous with respect to being able to finance with limited dilution. The bottom line is that fact plays further into the problem that exists market-wise. In other words, concerns about us needing to do a financing is not really allowing us to generate the kind of overall support for our market that would otherwise, I believe at least, see us trading at significantly higher levels. So we have these counteractive forces in the market. As a result, the offers that we have been getting, generally speaking, aren't what we are interested in accepting. Now, this is at the equity level current to today. If the question that I've just seen asked relates to strategic financings and the like, in the absence of Adam Smith, I can't properly answer that question, though that Adam and I communicate quite regularly on the subject, and I know that there is nothing immediate on the table.
The route to production permits and timing, that will be dictated by progress through PFS feasibility studies. What we can control now is getting the baseline work, which does have time constraints, a year of data collection, going right away. So that's being kicked off presently. Here's one for you, Craig, the TSX graduation to the big board from Henry. So the question is,
we've been told once we commence the application process that it's a 4 to 6 week process. The big impediment at this point in time is cash on hand, sufficient to meet our operating requirements for the next 12 months, and we do not have that in hand. How long can we operate on this path that we're on currently? Our current cash position will allow us to operate into August. As I said, there are, at least I referenced, generally speaking, a little while ago, that there are offers. We know that we can continue to finance the company, at least in a limited sense. The key here, again, is to advance the permitting process such that confidence is generated within the acquisition, the M&A community, as to the viability of this project in a regulatory context. And we need to make that headway. We don't need a lot of money in order to do that. We certainly don't need any substantial portion of the $20 million that's being quoted as necessary for the PFS. But the bottom line is, while it's a relatively limited sum, and we're currently estimating $4 to $5 million necessary for this process to be considerably advanced over the next 12 months. That money, we believe, is obtainable. The question is on what terms.
So I think it's prevalent to just iterate that the company does have the Mexican government's interest in this property. They have other mining companies with interest. They're doing everything they can in a very methodical way to ensure, shareholder value, even when it comes to capital raising. And that does lead to volatility. It does lead to risk, and smaller cap companies come with a different level of risk tolerance, and that's why I do like them for the potential upside. And it is one of the few that sit in my portfolio, and I've had quite a bit of success with small caps as of recently, but that doesn't constitute any kind of future successes. This is just for entertainment value only. They're the stocks that interest me, but I pass the question off to you. I'd love to know what you think about Oroco Resources in that comment section below, and any other commodity stocks that interest you in this current commodity boom. A lot of precious metals are rallying right now, and I'd love to hear about all of it and more. And consider subscribing for future updates. If you want to learn more about Oroco, go to their YouTube channel. The link is in the description below.